Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to another episode of Intuitive Creator Spotlight. This is a show where we dive into inspiring stories of individuals who have embraced their intuition and creativity to make a difference in the world. Today, I have Anne here with me, whose journey is a beautiful fusion of love for animals and also the healing energy of crystals. Welcome, Anne. It's such an honor to have you here. I wanted to share so much about you, and this is why I was like, okay, so what do I say first? Because you have so many beautiful gifts, and I can't wait for us to talk about them all. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here, and I'm glad you accepted my invitation. And I know you have a very deep connection with animals, and it's evident that you have such a profound bond with them through your journey. As I was getting familiar to the stories in your life and your journey, and I know we've been connected for a while, I've seen how much love you kept sharing with animals. And as I said to you earlier, before we started this video, that if somebody would ask me about a person who is sharing healing with animals, you would be, the name that comes to my mind right away, because I know how much you love that energy of giving love, healing to animals. Can you share a specific moment from your childhood that strengthened this bond between you and animals?
Yeah, that would be when I got my dog when I was about 10. I got a puppy, a Labrador puppy, and from the moment I chose, well, she chose me actually. We went to have a look at some puppies and I couldn't decide. And I remember standing on some stairs to get an overview of all the puppies running around. And I felt this tug on my shoe, and I looked down and there was a puppy pulling on my shoelaces. and I just knew, and I was like, yeah, she's the one. And ever since that moment, we kind of became inseparable. We became best friends, and wherever I went, she went with me, and we did everything together. And we had other pets as well. We had a parrot and we had a cat. But the bond I had, especially with that dog, was really special.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like she knew when I needed her to be around me, and she knew like when I needed my space without me having to say anything or do anything. And it just felt like we had such a strong connection, like a strong, almost like telepathic connection, where she just knew what I needed and I kind of knew what she needed. So, and it from there, it's just grown with the animals that I have encountered since.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt the calling to work with animals. But as I grew up and as I went through school and university and started working, I started to listen less and less to that inner calling and did what I thought I should be doing, which obviously was taking me away from what I truly wanted to do. And so it has taken me a very long time to to come back to my initial calling, which was in 2021. I think that's when I just finally stopped and listened, like really listened, and went, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. And that's when I decided to study Reiki and become a Reiki master. Before that and throughout probably for about 20 or 30 years, I had used crystals mainly on myself because I like the frequency of crystals and the healing that you can get from it. So I've been using it in terms of my own chakra cleansing, or I've been meditating with crystals. So I knew like it would be nice to incorporate crystals with something. And that something was Reiki, because I with the energy of Reiki and the energy of crystals, when I do a distance healing, I can really feel the benefit that the animal receives. And the reason I wanted to do Reiki was because it would be my way of saying thank you to all those animals that have been there for me throughout my life.
Wow.
And I thought, well, what better way to gift healing back to the animals?
Mm. Wow, that's really profound that you say you want to share your thank you to all the animals that have been there for you. What kind of situations did you go through when, you know, these animals were there for you? If you can share
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one.
When I was growing up, and for about 20, 25 years, I was bullied,
Mm.
which kind of happened pretty much daily. So I was very withdrawn when I was younger, very introverted, because I didn't trust people. But so the main constant in my life were the animals, because they never judged me, they never called me names, and I felt safe around them. So if it wasn't my own animals, I would go to stables and spend time with horses, because I used to ride when I was younger. And I've always had that feeling of safety and the feeling of not being judged, and that really helped me. And that kind of support really kind of helped pull me through those really dark moments.
Mm.
As I grew older, and in 2016, I was diagnosed with depression. And I think that was another turning point, because at that point we had rescue cats, and they really came into their own during that time. And the support I received from them,
Wow.
just like their companionship, their love, and yeah, just having them on my lap and stroking them, and it does so much for, for your well-being, lowering your heart rate, instill a sense of calm.
Mm.
So animals, as well as other therapies like mindfulness and meditation and exercise and Reiki, really helped me move on and start rebuilding myself.
So in a way
And
they were sharing a lot of healing with you.
yeah,
So they were
absolutely.
giving you
Yeah.
this beautiful energy. Do you feel in any way that you developed a special language or signs to communicate with them? And if so, how did that develop, and what kind of signs did you have to communicate?
Yeah. For me, it's like colors, because I'm so in tune with the chakras. I would get colors from them. So like with my cats, even if I don't use any words, but I get like the pink and green, like the heart chakra color. So for me, that kind of shows like the love we're showing between each other.
Wow.
Or, I can get like, get like a sense of happiness and like feeling content. So for me, I see colors.
Mm.
And when I use Reiki on myself, I tend to ask for messages, and the messages I tend to get are in forms of spirit animals. So there are times when I've done Reiki and I've seen the dog I used to have as a child, or I've seen like other animals, and because I've studied spirit animals, I can interpret the messages that
Mm.
that they impart. So the connection even goes like deeper than like the physical realm, especially when I'm doing Reiki and receiving those messages from animals.
Wow. Did you ever have a moment when there was the pet and their owner, and you received a message from the animal to share with the owner? Did this ever happen for you?
For me, the messages I receive when I do the Reiki session, I do distance Reiki, so I use a picture of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
And as I move my hands over the picture, I can sense where I need to spend more time,
Mm-hmm.
because I can sense if there are cold spots or warmer spots. So I can, and that normally tells me if there's an issue
Mm-hmm.
that they need to be aware of if they haven't told me. Usually I tend to ask if there's any medical issue with the animal before I start, just so that I'm aware. But if not, then I normally pick up. Like I can pick up if they have issues with their backs or their legs, and whatever I feel and sense in terms of like the colors I get and the areas of their body that I feel I need to focus on, I relay that to the owners, and a lot of the time they're pleasantly surprised and go, "Oh, but I didn't tell you he had problems with his leg," or
Wow.
so it's kind of, yeah, it's nice because then you can kind of relay, and especially if I see colors as well, because colors, the chakra colors correspond with the emotions, and I can relay what I felt. So it's lovely to have that conversation, before and after with the owners, and them noticing that, the changes in their animal before
Mm-hmm.
and after a Reiki session.
And especially
And
that, animals, they don't speak. So
no,
your owner
no,
need to kind of understand what's happening there, and
yeah,
how precious is that you can give them this guidance. It is really, really important that they can take this information and go with it. I've heard this somewhere, that the animals would absorb the energy or sometimes even the disease of the owner. What would you say about this, and how is this happening? And if it's happening, how can the owner prevent that?
yeah. Animals are very sensitive to the energy that we emit. So they pick up on our energy and our mood and how we are. And it very much affects them as well. Because it's, if we're angry or if we're sad, then our energy, our vibrational energy goes down, and they really pick up on that. Animals definitely pick up on our energy. And, if we're putting on, a brave face, but we're not feeling good, you're not going to be able to fool your animal, because because they can still feel what you're feeling. So
Mhm.
if you're pretending to be happy, but in fact you're not feeling that good, then they may spend more time with you to help you. Because when you own animals, that you become really close, and you can kind of pick up on subtle changes. And with everyone having auras, they can sense the difference if there's if there's blockages in your aura, and and depending on, and also illness, animals do pick up on the illnesses as well.
Absolutely. I remember when I was a child, I had a dog. It was a she, and I was so close to her, because every time I would be sad, or even if I would cry or something, she would just come to me, sit next to me, and she would sit there until I would calm down. And it's just beautiful to see how we help each other, how we
Mm.
exchange this energy, and how we are one. And it's intuition, not only from our side, but also from their side as well. And I absolutely love how you want to give back to the animal world, and you want to share this healing with them. So I know you said you studied the spiritual animals, right? What is something that inspired you to go on this journey and embrace this journey and learn about it, about this subject?
I think that, well, for me, because I've always had an interest in spirit guides, and every time I have done like meditations to discover who your spirit guide is, I've always received animal images.
Mhm.
so for me, that kind of told me, and that I have an even deeper connection to animals. And spirit animals have always fascinated me, and like the history of it, and from like all the various cultures and their representation of spirit animals, like, you know, animals depicted in totem poles, and, you know, spirit animals in mythology. So it's something I've always been interested in. So it was natural for me to progress to do a diploma about spirit animals that incorporated learning about all of these different areas. Because to me, then I can make more sense of when I do meditations to do with spirit guides and I encounter animals, then it gives me a deeper understanding of why they're appearing and what it may mean. So I think, yeah, it's kind of natural, because most of what I do revolves around animals in one way or another. So to do that made perfect sense. And obviously, as I continue, I will probably add more things.
Yeah.
For animals, like learning more about, you know, natural remedies for animals. So, you know, if you wanted to use a combination of medication and natural remedies, especially like as, you know, like you do for humans,
Yeah.
that's another area that I'm really interested in, that hopefully I will be learning about in the future. But yeah,
This is really exciting. And, you know, a thought that came to me because I work with humans and I use my intuition to guide human beings. I know that we have spirit guides, and I know that we have, you know, so much around us that helps us through life. But I was thinking as you were talking, do animals have their own spirit animal guide? And if they do, like, how does that manifest or show up? And do you see that around them?
I haven't personally experienced that with my animals, but I very much believe that we have soul contracts with animals that enter our lives. And because I've had experiences of encountering the dog I had like over 30 years ago, when I've been doing meditations, and, you know, the last time I saw her, she was really poorly, but in the meditations and the sessions I've been doing by myself, you know, she's running around, she's happy, and I think that can bring comfort as well, to connect with an animal from that's past, that's in the spirit realm. So I do think there's, you know, if we can have a connection with them, and I don't think sometimes obviously they visit us, you know, whether it's in dreams or, you know, we may hear them. You know, sometimes when you lose an animal, you might still hear them around, even though they're not physically here, but you can sense them as well. And I think it makes sense that if we can do that, I'm convinced that animals can as well, because they are more sensitive to that side than we are. You know, their senses are more developed and more heightened than what we're able to detect. So for me, it would make sense that they would have that as well.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting? I remember again from my childhood when there was something like natural phenomenon happening, I don't know, something, a big rain or whatever, animals will sense that and they would start to make noises, and it would be like really interesting. And I remember my parents, they would always say like, oh, the dog is doing this sound, then it means this is going to happen. And it's like they are communicating with us, and it's just magical, isn't it? And I know that in your journey, you then embraced the path of like studying more about crystals. How did that happen? What inspired you to learn more about crystals as well?
Yeah, I've been using crystals for decades. That started when I was young. I was fascinated by the structure and the color, until I realized the the frequency and the energy that crystals have, and how that can help you depending on which crystal you're working with. So I got interested in that from a really early age and wanted to learn more about how they work and how they can work with various parts of your body. So for me, they became the norm to use when I wanted to calm down, or when I just needed like a boost, depending on the mood. And it also helped me like with exam nerves. I always used to have crystals with me. So it's been a tool, like a self-help tool for me to help me navigate like difficult times. So for me, I've always kind of used it as a healing tool, and also a meditation tool, because I know how like how magical it can be to work with crystals and the properties they have and what you can achieve, by, giving the crystals an intention and working with it, depending on, what you were to work on. So I think it's been really helpful personally, in my personal development journey and helping me grow as a person. And I've never really stopped using crystals. But when I started studying Reiki, I wanted to bring the crystals back to complement Reiki. And yeah, ever since then, I've started working more with crystals, and incorporating them whenever I do self-healing on myself. So when I give myself Reiki, I'll also place a crystal on myself, depending on which area I feel I may need to work on a bit more. And I feel that really helps. And so when I do Reiki, I do it for the owners as well, if they're interested. But yeah, I do feel that having the image of the animal and the person along with the crystals works really well in terms of the energy transfer and the, me being a kind of channel for the Reiki and the crystal healing. And I feel it's a really wonderful modality to use, in terms of, setting intentions and delivering the distance healing.
Like when you find these books about crystals and you hear information about crystals, we know that like every crystal, if you even Google the name of the crystal, it has a meaning and what it can do for you. Would you say that this is like the meaning that we see in books or online for a specific crystal is valid for every single person? Or would you say if we feel just drawn to a crystal, we can activate it in a way that would have a specific meaning to us? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't generally rely on like the textbooks, because I tend to, when I select my crystals, I want to feel what it feels like. And I think that's the best way, because sometimes, I've seen a crystal and I thought, oh yeah, I really like that one. And I picked it up and I was like, I don't really feel anything. So and I think I think it's important to kind of have that connection. So, because if you don't really feel anything, then it might be quite difficult, because some of the crystals can be like dormant in terms of energy. And I think also being mindful of where you get the crystals from, how they've been mined. And so just kind of do your research around it, because if you're getting the ones that are really mass produced and cheap, it can, well, a lot of people kind of refer to them as pretty shelf sitters, because they don't really do anything, because their energy isn't there. So I think it's, if it's an area you really want to explore, then just kind of do the research and find out how the crystals have been mined, where they're coming from. And because I think that's really important if you're going to work with them as well. And also, being mindful of how you can charge them, how you cleanse them. And yeah, just doing a bit of research. Most of the books are quite good in terms of, I mean, I can use Reiki to cleanse my crystals, or I can use a selenite bowl to place the crystals in, or sometimes I rinse them underwater. But obviously you need to be careful because some crystals can be soluble. So it's just kind of being mindful and doing what feels right for you. Because I don't think there needs to be like, you have to do it this way and no other way. Because I think everyone develops their own way of working with crystals and what feels right for them. So whether they just want to use crystals for meditation, or or whether they want to use them for healing, or combine them with other modalities, or whether they want to wear them. Like, for example, I'm wearing my amethyst pendant.
Beautiful.
So it's I think you feel what's right for you when you start working with them, and that's how I've learned, because I've taught myself how to work with the crystals that works best for me. I have since done a diploma in crystal healing for animals. It works pretty much the same as with humans, but with animals, if you want to do a crystal healing session, what I tend to do is place a selection of crystals in like a semicircle and let the animal choose.
Oh, wow.
Because they will feel drawn to one or two particular crystals. And then okay, well, these are the ones to use. And you can just have the crystals near the animal. And the energy from them will be what the animal needs. Because that's what I do with my cats. I place crystals in a semicircle, and they either go and lie down next to one, or they go and sniff one, and ignore the other ones. So I know, okay, today we're working on the heart chakra and solar plexus. So it's really lovely because they have, because they feel the energy from them.
So you work with crystals and Reiki, and you help animals and you give them the healing. Did you ever have a situation where the owner will come with their pet, and then they will say, "Oh, actually, I may benefit from a bit of healing too." Did you have situations where you had to offer healing to both pet and owner?
I have done. I have had clients in the past that asked if I can do a session for both, which I can. I just use 2 pictures, and I'll just use one of my hands for the animal, one of the hands for the humans, and you can do like a combined session.
That's so interesting, and it helps both.
Yeah.
Right, and somehow creates a better, like a stronger connection between them as well. To everyone who's watching us, if our viewers, they have pets or they don't have pets, and they want to know how can they create a better connection with their pets, what advice would you share with them?
I would say be mindful of your own energy. And your energy and your mindset has a lot to do with how you interact and connect with your animal. So if you're in a good mindset and you're emitting good energy, then the animal will pick up on that. One of the things that I would suggest, I know not everyone is into meditation, but invite them to meditation. Because you automatically goes into a calm state and a relaxed state, and that in turn is going to relax your animal as well. Another thing could be, if you have a dog, if you place your hands on the shoulders of the dog, just maybe rub in like a little circle lightly. Those shoulder points of animals, that's the human connection energy bond. And assuming your animal isn't newly rescued or has any other aggression issues or behavioral issues, but generally most animals are fine if you touch them on the shoulders. And just almost like you're doing like a little massage on them, on the shoulder points. That can help both you and the animal relax. And, when you both feel safe, that bond will increase.
That's so beautiful. And, I know this happened a lot during the COVID time, when a lot of people, they felt like they need to have pets. But then after the COVID was gone and they had to go back to their jobs and their normal lives, there was the question of like, what do we do now with our pet? What advice would you give to people who are considering inviting pets into their life? And what should they have in mind when they make this step?
Definitely the time. Do they have time? Because especially in the beginning, when you invite an animal to share your home, the first couple of weeks are going to be really important because that's when you're both getting to know each other. But also make sure that the animal has a safe space. So if it needs a break from you and the family, it has somewhere to go where it's not going to be disturbed, to allow that settling in period, because it's going to vary from animal to animal. Also, think of the costs involved. So, pet insurance, all the vaccinations, the bedding, food, veterinary costs. Make sure you kind of do the research around the cost, the time, the commitment, and really kind of think of the type of animal as well. Because if you haven't got experience of owning animals, then getting a really large breed of dog might not be best if you haven't got the space. So what realistically would be suitable, I would speak to, even go and speak to a vet or go to one of the pet shops, because they're very knowledgeable and they can advise based on, what you want, whether you're thinking of like hamsters or guinea pigs or, to cats, to dogs, to fish even. I think it's, and as a family, I think everyone needs to sit down and discuss and talk about like what is actually involved, what will this entail, and who's going to do what, so that you're not going to have someone going, oh, but I want a dog, and then they get the dog and then they don't do anything. So it very much needs to be a joint decision between everyone, because it's not just, you're not just inviting a thing, you're inviting another living being, and that animal is for life. So it is a really big commitment, and you need to make sure that you're ready for that. And that's what I would say. And also, be aware of all the, because there's been a lot of information in the press about like puppy farms and scammers and horrible people out there. It's being aware of that as well, and where you're getting the animal from. Because there's a lot of there's still a lot of puppy farms and illegal trades, and which is horrible. I would always recommend adopting, because there are so many animals in shelters and adoption places that need loving homes.
Especially after COVID, I've heard
exactly
so many, like I've seen lots of news without even like looking to specifically to find the news, and I would see them everywhere. sharing like how many animals don't have home anymore, and it's
Yes.
heartbreaking. It really is. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And as we are finishing this episode today, I just want to share how grateful I am that you came here and talked to us about all of these things, very, very important things. What would be a message that comes to you now that you wanted to share with our viewers? As they've listened to this episode up until this moment, what else would you like to share with them?
Just for all the animal lovers out there, just to, thank you to everyone who has chosen to embrace animals in their lives. And, thank you for everyone who supports adoption centers and rescue centers, because those animals and those centers really struggle. So I'm really grateful for everyone who has. I've always adopted. I'm always a big advocate for adopt, not shop. So I would really stress that as an important message for anyone considering having a pet, to definitely go with adoption.
Thank you so much for this, Anne. Your presence here has been incredible, and I'm sure that your story has touched many hearts of those who are watching our episode. Thank you so much for watching us. If you liked this episode, like it, subscribe to the channel, let us know your thoughts about the episode, ring the notification bell, and check out the description so that you know how you can connect with Anne and myself. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.